Hello, everyone. And the music's still playing. This is fantastic. All right, why did it not stop? There we go. That is technology at its best right there. So what was supposed to happen was a very smooth transition from that screen into us talking and being able to say, but we're just going to pretend like it happened perfectly and tell you all good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the last 7 days where we're about to dive into aerospace and defense. This is the show where Andrew and I, and maybe some special guests, talk about what's happening in the product lifecycle related news over this last week. And we begin with aerospace and defense. We go in and talk about automotive, then we go into high tech, and then some people and culture. So welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow. And what's coming up for us, Brian?
We are going to talk about we always like to bring in a little bit of space news, keep our head way up in the clouds. But this week, NASA actually postponed the launch of their asteroid mission Psyche. They postponed it a week because they needed to update the configuration of the thrusters on the spacecraft. This was supposed to launch yesterday on October 5th, and it's now delayed until October 12th to give engineers more time to review and verify the parameters used for nitrogen cold gas thrusters that orient the spacecrafts. This is because the engineers concluded that the thrusters would operate at a warmer temperature than previously predicted, which I find pretty interesting because one thing that we always talk about is the importance for your testing, your prep, and all of that kind of stuff. And when you plan one way and reality ends up being another way, things have to change. And I guess it's good to find this out before you shoot stuff up into space and find out temperatures are not what you expected.
So talking of planning is going to be extremely relevant in the manufacturing space of A&D. Every day flights are full. That's what it feels like to me. I can't remember the last time I got on a flight and there wasn't somebody there and that every seat was taken up. But they still say that aviation isn't back up to where it was pre-COVID. But things are looking up. Bit of news over the last few days. For number one, Air France KLM is to order 50 Airbus jets. I think they just put Boeing to the post on that one. Textron has confirmed a Surf Air order for 20 Grand Caravans. And I think we even announced last week that China Eastern is to buy 100 C919 planes. It's their largest ever order. And the other bit I saw from the Aerospace and Defense Society is that August was the biggest aircraft order month with a 440% growth on 2022. Huge things going on. So better get our planning scheduled for that. And then my last item that I've come across in the last 7 days is BAE Systems has landed a 5-year deal for the F-22 Raptor. How cool a name is that, Brian? I mean, I love that name. I need to find something to rename Raptor. But anyway.
Well, that's because it's getting close to like the holiday time. People are going to start wrapping things together.
I always go Jurassic Park, but anyway, that's fine. Under the contract, BAE Systems will continue to manage the Air Superiority Fighters AN/ALR-94 electronic warfare system, providing repairs, upgrades, logistics, test equipment maintenance, depot level spares, and engineering support. So to me, you're plugging BAE into Lockheed Martin, the manufacturers, the F-22 Raptor. This is a classic environment for model-based enterprise, which is where the direction of a Lockheed is going, if they're not already there. And we're saying that when you're into this whole maintenance MRO area, that you really need to kind of take MRO and link it back into the whole product lifecycle, back into your CAD, back into your product data, and not just think of it as an extension to ERP. So it's the digital thread, it's the model-based enterprise, and MRO is all about that.
Yeah, and all let's talk about planning. I'm wondering, we have our special guest field reporter, Bruce, about to join us live from over in the UK, and I wonder if he's got some things to talk about planning as well. Let's find out. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or wherever you are. Here we are in autumnal London, and as ever, the theme of space is going to be my kicking off part. Little bit of information for those going back to the late 1990s. You remember the International Space Station was launched to much acclaim, and over the last 22 years, we've seen lots of exciting things happening there. I didn't realize how big the bloody thing was. Actually, it's about 440 tons, and actually, over the time, we've had near on 250 astronauts have worked there. But as they say, all good things have to come to an end at some point. And what they're predicting is that by 2030, it will come to its end of its useful life. Effectively, the redundancy is going to be catching up with it, and it'll make it unsafe for people to work there. So NASA is facing some challenges about that. And what is it going to be doing? Well, the options considering were perhaps originally to push it into a higher orbit where it perhaps could be used, repurposed, etc. But cost has gotten in the way of that. And then, unfortunately, the world of politics is creeping in as well. Russia was planning to leave the ISS program by the late 2028, and adding to that the deteriorating Russian-US relationship, it makes it all very unlikely to happen. So is there a solution for this? Well, the wags on the internet have been saying, well, could we not turn it into a moon Airbnb? Practically, that could be a good idea because you're taking viable parts of the structure and then using them, repurposing them on for future moon missions. But alternatively, though, these are very expensive ways to look at solving the problem. So NASA have taken a rather, I would like to think, draconian view on this. They're cutting straight to the chase. And they've come up with the idea of a United States deorbital vehicle. Now, for those of you who love an acronym, that is the USDV. In essence, we're talking space tugs. And the idea is that NASA will go out and procure a vehicle which will go up to the orbiting altitude of where the ISS is and slowly bring it down into a lower orbit where it'll burn up on impact. Now, putting to one side your views on whether that's an ethical way of dealing with it, there are lots of issues about it. The cost of it, for starting off with, they reckon it's going to be about $180 million contract value. But as you start to read between the fine print, they reckon it's going to be closer to £1 billion simply to execute this, what they call a tug and burn exercise, and to bring it into orbit. And that's just the start of the challenge. Because those of you who were listening last week, you'll heard me talk about the increase in the number of satellites and the challenges of managing the re-entry of satellites and other items. By 2030, we're going to have approximately 15,000 of these little chaps whizzing around, which will make it, for the planning perspective, an extremely difficult task. But let's actually, before we get to there, think about actually the building of this tug in the first place. NASA have got extremely high standards, as you'd expect from any organization that puts people into space.
Yep.
The challenge of modeling this whole thing, Andrew, we're talking about three-dimensional propulsion, navigation, comms, avionics. It makes my little head fry just to think about it. So pulling it all together is going to be one hell of a task. But I'm sure out there are people who are willing to do it. And I'd be interested to see if Messrs. Musk and Bezos are ready to step up to the pad once more.
Yeah, I mean, you have opened the door to and forgive the pun, but entirely new worlds. I was in a conversation with one of the, I gotta say, foremost space experts yesterday. And we're lucky to be working with him, Jason Robertson, and he's going to be doing a live show with us in a few weeks' time. And we open up the world of in-space assembly and manufacturing. And essentially, what we're talking about here is, you're right, constructing these tugs that go into space. They can disassemble, maintain potentially, and then sell parts to other space explorers and venturers, whatever we call them. They could then reconstruct, remanufacture, all in space. It doesn't even have to come back down to Earth. They could be doing this. Is a new world that is really opening up. So, us Trekkies in the room, etc. It's fascinating, but it's going to be interesting how they transfer all those regulations up into space, how they monitor all of those things going on, because it is a new world of manufacturing that's taking place up there. Fascinating. Love it. Can't wait to do the show.
Well, remember, in space, Andrew, nobody can hear you scream, so it should be okay.
I believe that was a threat, and I'm just fascinated by the facts that when people made the ISS, we didn't necessarily plan on it's going to go away someday, right? Like, part of this whole product life cycle is you do the whole life cycle, and so you create it, but you got to figure out what happens once it's outlived its usefulness or its ability to keep people alive. And so now we effectively have
Now there's a good reminder that the product life cycle doesn't stop at the M-bomb, guys.
Yeah, you got an entire new product life cycle happening to figure out how to create a product that can get rid of another product that's in the end of its life cycle.
Design for recyclability, design for sustainability, yada, yada, yada. Absolutely.
But also, I think against the background, a cultural background, and challenge me if you think I'm speaking off the mark here. People are used to space stuff coming back to Earth with a burning bang. There's never been from the outset the idea of, oh, look, if it comes up, we'll keep it up or we can bring it down safely. Yes, we obviously had the period with the shuttle, and that was very successful within the parameters operating. But fundamentally, space culture, up until the arrival of Mrs. Musk and Bezos, was all about chuck it up into space and it goes bang and that's it. Let's get another one. Sustainability was not quite on the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. So Bruce, in your last 4 minutes here, what do you have for us about the myths of the life cycle?
Well, we're going to come down to some more good news. Pardon the pun, but it is Friday afternoon. Andrew, at the top of the call, mentioned that it's been a very busy month. In fact, in the UK, the figures Andrews were talking about was year on year, we've seen a 440% increase in the number of new aircraft being ordered from the UK aerospace sector. Now, if you break that down, it's actually 4,500 new aircraft have been ordered since last year. And we're seeing the signs of a recovery. And we reasonably expect, actually, that by 2024, aerospace manufacturing will be back to its 2020 pre-COVID levels. Pardon me, too many 24s there. It's been a long week. Now, in terms of actual value to the businesses, this is quite fascinating. It's approximately £220 billion worth of business, Andrew, which will be delivered over the next 10 years. Now, that's a great good news story. But what's hiding off stage in the background, that there's a 14,500 order backlog within the UK aerospace industry. This is for aircraft which have been ordered, have yet to be delivered, and then we're seeing this tremendous increase on top of those existing numbers. This, as a layperson looking at it, indicates there's lots of problems potentially in the supply chain, and it's going to become increasingly under pressure, from production disruptions, the increasing freight costs, material handling costs. Where's it going to go, and how can we improve upon this? And I think one of the challenges it's going to face the industry over the next couple of years is visibility across what is a multiple component, multiple supplier supply chain. And never more important will be the need to have this visibility, this cross-connectivity, digital oversight across all providers. And that's going to be probably the biggest challenge actually facing UK aerospace in the next couple of years. It'll be interesting to watch this one unfold, Andrew.
Yeah, and I don't think it's UK. I think North America is just the same, and I suspect we'll find out into Asia as well. But the bottom line, as you said, we come across this a lot. We've been spending millions and millions and millions on digital engineering and getting everything looking amazing and being perfect. But the reality is manufacturing has been sadly neglected, and therefore the coordination with the supply chain has been sadly neglected. COVID exposed us for that. And I think we're consistently seeing daily now people having to improve production systems, having to improve demand planning and forecasting, having to get more agile with resource planning, equipment planning and scheduling, inventory management. It goes on and on and on. So it's a daily occurrence, and people need to kind of just reinvest in manufacturing, even forgetting reshoring for a moment, because that is what's going on. So you can be more in tune with your suppliers and your supply chain and efficiencies on the shop floor. So
interesting. Let's watch how it unfolds. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
Hey, Bruce, thanks for joining us. And I just want to pose one question for everybody to think about, maybe put in the comments here, is how much supply chain and life cycle planning was needed to be involved in the creation of the USS Enterprise?
Ooh, Google time.
And with that, we will see you all in about...
You don't know the answer?
This is for all the Trekkies. Yeah, you said you were a Trekkie, so you got to...
Oh, I thought you were talking about the aircraft carrier. Okay, fair enough.
And Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back in just a couple minutes to talk about automotive.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. You're on mute.
We're gonna have to work on these live transitions a little bit better for as we're moving into
Clunky.
this. We have a whole new way we're trying to make the show work, as our viewers might notice, where we're keeping this whole stream going, bringing in each section. We'll see how it goes. So, assuming that was a smooth transition, we would have began with, "Hey everybody, welcome back to the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman, and
I'm Andrew Sparrow.
And we are here to dive into news in the product life cycle that is related to automotive. So we're going to bring on our in-house automotive resident. Welcome to the stage, Dan.
The one, the only.
Oh, look at those cars in the background. If that was your real garage and not a nice green screen background, I would be really impressed.
That you don't think that's my garage?
It could be. I was actually waiting for you to tell me that is my garage.
It is my garage.
Could be a cardboard cutout, of course.
So yeah,
It's
in automotive
hers.
news this week, we're just going to dive in and talk about the fact that recently Tesla, in kind of a quiet way, they had a slide that said, here's what's happening in our engines, and it had the quantities of rare earth minerals 1, 2, and 3 listed. And on one of the slides, it shows in the future that this number is going down to 0. So there will be 0 rare earth magnets in some future engines coming up. And this made the internet a little bit of buzz where people are trying to figure out what's happening. What does this mean? Have they found some new sort of rare earth magnet or new kind of magnet that's going to work? Or are they going to use a less strong magnet that is not a rare earth magnet to be able to make these engines work? It will just require more quantities of other cheaper things. But the biggest thing to take away here is the reason that they cited was simply because of supply chain concerns and the toxicity of producing these. So they are called rare earth magnets for a reason. And that means that they are not, there's limited quantities here. So some of the internet is thinking that we may end up having such things as these common, we'll call them common earth, maybe magnets, cobalt, ferrite, iron, other things that are going to be mixed together to make magnets that work, but aren't necessarily as efficient as the ones that we find in all of our phones and batteries so far.
Got it. All righty. Let's jump in with a few pieces of headline news for you on the automotive side. Before I pick up with one really interesting piece of news, which I'm going to come to, and Dan, I think it'll get you in sync with me on that. First up, Titan Freight System adds electric trucks in Oregon. After much anticipation, Titan Freight Systems has taken delivery of its first battery electric trucks, 3 Freightliner E Cascadias. They'll be joined by 3 Freightliner EM2 medium-duty electric box trucks by the end of the year. Second up, Lucid Motors. Really interesting organization. If nobody's seen Lucid, go check it out. It is a super luxury sedan. The thing flies. It has an incredible battery range. So anybody with battery anxiety, cool off. I think it's getting up to 500 miles. It's going to be built in a new plant in Arizona. So the California-based electric vehicle startup Lucid just announced the plans to build an assembly plant over in Arizona. They expect construction on the $700 million facility to start in the second quarter of 2017, bringing more than 2,000 new jobs to the Grand Canyon state over 5 years. The company says eventually the plant will turn out 50 to 60,000 of its electric luxury sedans per year. Remember that number. After operations begin in late 2018. As a matter of interest, in Q2 of this year, they want to go to 50 to 60,000. They produced 2,200. So clearly, they're going to need to scale their manufacturing operations management systems to handle this. There's something to think about.
Yeah.
Moving on to the really interesting one, Renault, whatever you want to call them, ends common purchasing agreement with Nissan and Mitsubishi. So what, we might ask? Well, here's where I'm coming from. Renault said on Tuesday, last Tuesday, that it would end its common purchasing agreement with partners Nissan and Mitsubishi with a view to having a more agile structure that could make decisions more quickly. The move is aimed at adapting automotive markets that are becoming more regional due to differences in regulations such as electrification and connectivity, plus the fact that the fourth industrial revolution is driving us all as a consumer to more personalized products. So that ability to configure a vehicle to your personal style, needs, feelings, whatever it needs to be, is really becoming flavor now. So therefore, how do you improve procurement? Because that's clearly what they want to do through PLM and MES. Here's my 2 cents. One, supplier collaboration. You got to get that fixed during design. 2, data integration. So that siloed ERP, that siloed PLM, MES, and supply chain has to come together as one model-based enterprise. Demand forecasting for inventory optimization, just-in-time manufacturing. All of these things need to be changing now, and this is where Renault are going. I mean, I think they are now the biggest 3D Experience cloud customer in the world. 3D Experience, for those of you who don't know, is a Dassault System PLM product that we know a little bit about, and also now cascading that whole collaborative venture into MES and MOM as well. I don't know, Dan, Brian, what do you think? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a process that I think we're going to see more and more companies adapt and really try to make more of an advantage of, because we know the best thing you do is the more efficient, the safer, the better you can make all of your life cycle process work, then of course the happier the consumer is, and probably the more money your company makes.
Yep.
And I know that Dan's about to talk about, I think, some semi-truck type news, and I know just recently Tesla had an electric semi-truck that traveled over 1,000 miles in a single day, which is kind of proving people wrong who said that you're not going to be able to make what was there a challenge somebody made of like, hey, show me a truck that's not powered by gasoline that can travel 1,000 miles in a day, because you have the resource having to find a way to fill it back up, recharge it, etc. And so it's interesting. I think there was a 18-day study that concluded that on the second to last day, the Tesla Semi number 3 managed to travel 1,076 miles in a single day.
Quick question.
Do
you happen to know if that was autonomous, semi-autonomous?
That was not, I believe that was not autonomous. That one was actually just normal, driven by a human, I believe, but electric powered.
Got it. Okay.
And Dan, what do you have for us in the news of the semi news, so to speak?
So I wanted to just add to your Tesla piece. So that if you think about it, that's halfway across the country, and then they have to recharge.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just across like the middle part of the U.S. But to piggyback off of what you said there, Mercedes-Benz just announced a hydrogen semi-truck prototype that covers more than 650 miles on one fill. It went from the Daimler Germany plant out to 1,076 kilometers. So I don't know the math on that over from Europe, but it sounds just about that 600 to 700 mile range.
Going south? Yeah. Towards Italy.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So that's pretty exciting. When you tie it back to PLM, they're one of the first to market on the hydrogen side.
Yeah.
For their
interesting. Big
for
debate.
their semi vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, when you go to fill one of these up, it's not like the car that we talked about a week or so ago, the hydrogen car, where it's 3 to 4 minutes of refuel. This would triple or quadruple that to refuel.
It's a truck. Yeah. I get it.
Absolutely.
It's good. Yeah, a lot happening. Yeah, we were even playing with a dirigible 200 mile an hour thing as well, and that's all hydrogen driven. So really interesting subject. Now I know the EV guys probably don't want to hear too much about it, but there we go.
Right.
Hey, all righty. What's up? What's next?
One thing that I thought was really interesting is, did you see, Dan, in the news this last week of the autonomous vehicles in Austin that had caused a long traffic jam because they just got stuck and didn't know, they couldn't figure out how to get out of it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it caused a pretty big traffic jam, almost like you see those 15-car pileups on the highway. Same thing, but in the city of Austin. Wasn't it?
And
Austin?
no wrecks. They were just cars that they just stopped
Yeah.
moving because they were all trying
Exactly.
the same small. It looked
And they
like a
were-
residential
'Cause they're
intersection.
all-
They just
yeah,
didn't know
wow.
how to process, so they just
Yeah, it was
stopped.
like the brains of the cars had jammed, and they were kind of shifting back and forth, all of them.
I got a picture of a Roomba in my mind where they were just all going like this. Sort of.
Yeah.
Do you think
Pretty
that's making consumers, lose trust in such things?
Well, it's interesting you say that because as of this week, consumers are losing trust in self-driving vehicles because of news items like this. There are also people that have been, severely injured or have died because of these self-driving vehicles. Most recently out west in San Francisco. But consumers are also fickle and willing to breach trust by misusing assisted driving systems, which is interesting.
Yep, and then blame that.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It frustrates me because this is just human behavior over and over and over again. Number one, not dispelling the lives that were lost. Don't get me wrong, but the reality is, history has shown over the years, this is how media grabs drama. Drama sells newspapers, if anybody buys one of those any longer. Drama sells TV shows, if anybody has network cable TV any longer. And this is where they're coming from. So they put it in front of the audience, and at the same time, then you start to get people saying, "Oh, it's a nightmare, it's awful." The same happened with air travel when that first came out. Everybody's like, "Whoa, it's not safe." And now the reality is they say it's safer to travel in an aircraft than cross the road. Nuclear energy, there's a hot topic. I know there's still plenty out there, naysayers on that one. Genetically modified crops.
You're just really trying to figure out how many
Vaccinations. We still debate that one. No, conspiracy. There we go. So, I mean, that's just natural human behavior to fear the new, fear the unknown, so to speak, I think, anyway.
Well,
and then what we're going to do is just look at what goes in the product life cycle to make these things safe.
Yes, that would be my point, to tie it back to product life cycle management. Yep. I've seen robotics companies where, it goes through the testing phase, but it gets out onto the floor as a prototype at a show. Somebody steps in front of it and it does the herky jerky, not sure what to do. And then the person that's controlling it quickly comes over and shuts it off.
Yeah. You got it. True. The herky jerky.
I think we could safely say maybe it's a brave new world that we're moving into here with all of this stuff. And I still am just baffled by how we are living in what 10 years ago felt like science fiction is just becoming more and more reality.
I did get reprogrammed when the national alert came out.
I can tell a difference in you. And on that note, we're going to let Dan go back to his charging station, and we'll see you all in just a couple of minutes as we dive into the exciting world of news and tech.
See you, Dan.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And welcome back to the last 7 days. I'm going to make sure Andrew's unmuted. You know what? I almost did it. It was almost a smooth transition, and then it wasn't. So we're gonna nail this by next week. But welcome back to the last 7 days.
Time lucky.
Yeah, that's why we're talking about high tech now, is because that's what we're moving into, is this new high tech world of what's happening. So this is the show, if you're just joining us, where we dive into articles and news that we have found over the last 7 days that relate to the product lifecycle. So, Andrew, what have you brought for us today?
So, NVIDIA versus AMD versus Intel, comparing AI chip sales. NVIDIA has become an early winner of the generative AI boom. The company reported record revenue in its second quarter earnings report, with sales of AI chips playing a large role. Now, if we compare them to their other competitors, AMD and Intel, in 2021, NVIDIA was at 40% of Intel sales. And by Q2 of this year, it was at 250% of Intel sales, 2.5 times that of Intel. Amazing. It's estimated to have more than 70% of the market share for AI chips. Let's be honest, if you were going to be in a category and in a sector that was set to grow and take over, AI chips would be a pretty good bet, I'd say. So smart move, NVIDIA, really shuffling with the times. To me, AI chips is where it's going. Handling that data volume and the complexity, given the massive amounts of data, be that process, quality control, and equipment data, is huge in a manufacturing environment. Never mind, pushing them back into the early stages of the product life cycle. Handling all of it relies on the most advanced MES tools, real-time monitoring for quality and yield, equipment integration, numerous variants, design tool integration, and you can go on and on. So big stuff in the high-tech sector, especially around that kind of PCB, AI chip manufacturing.
And just to tag along to the idea of manufacturing, there's one thing in the life cycle we often don't consider, as we talked about in our aerospace section, is the full life of when stuff gets to be phased out. But there's also things that happen that we use for shipping, for manufacturing processes, and for benefits to stuff that end up creating problems that we don't know how to deal with and maybe weren't expected. An example of this is PFAS, which is a PFAS, an example, or a family of 9,000 chemicals that basically contaminate water, and we cannot get rid of them. They don't break down. They're used in food packaging, firefighting foams, carpets, fabrics, water repellent, nonstick pans. These are all around us, and they've caused a problem because they are long-lived chemicals that are great at deflecting water stains and grease, but because of that, they also just contaminate water and make it non-drinkable, and it's problems. And so there's some startups who've been trying to tackle this, and there's one called Aquagagga, that's AQUAGGA, or maybe it's Aquaga, who have actually just proven that due to tools that have become available recently, they're able to actually make dents in these. And so now they're saying this is going to be a $400 billion industry of getting rid of these PFAS things, which is really interesting and great for the environment, but also interesting for how as we talked about, some of our manufacturing processes and product lifecycle create new product life cycles and ways to get rid of them. And speaking of manufacturing and high tech, let's bring in our reporter from south of the border.
Hey.
Oh, on Tatooine today.
Hello, guys. Well, I have a new location.
Yep.
Actually, you were talking about
it's very
AI,
Carolina.
Guys. Yeah. And I'm really passionate about it. With the manufacturing and AI.
Yep.
I have a really good article for today because, Google, right? Google is really huge, really big. Okay, Google is spying us, etc. So, but now they are competing with the hardware stuff, right? So they are going to the manufacturing side with Pixels, with all the brands, competing probably with Apple, right? That is the direction.
Yep.
So what is interesting thing right here? Because they are trying to combine AI, hardware, and software. So they have the data, they have the resources, and now they are trying to manufacture the hardware, right?
Wow.
So they are launching the new.
Are they doing it all in-house, or are they still outsourcing manufacturing?
Well, it's outsourcing manufacturing, of course.
Okay,
because
but
that is
it's one package. Okay.
exactly, that is the
Yeah.
ideal. But
Yep.
in engineering and development, it's
Mm.
in charge of Google, which is really, really good. It's a huge part because combining all of those three worlds, the AI, the hardware, and the software, you're gonna have
Yep.
everything in just one product, and the owner gonna be Google.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be really, really interesting. They are deciding where is better to manufacture.
Yep.
We have different locations to do that. But the interesting thing about it is how they are improving this software to listen us and detect our voice or conversations and
Mm.
understand if we are requiring for something. You know,
Mm.
we heard about it with other brands. That is not a new thing, but I insist the new thing of this is that they are combining everything. They have the big data of the engines in the browser. So
It's really interesting to look across these industries. We try to bring a lot of best practices cross industry, learnings from other ones. And I think that's just positive, and I think it's healthy. But if you think of that complexity that we have in aerospace and defense and we have in transport, automotive, manufacturing, the collaboration that goes on in design and engineering today and has been going on for a number of years, if you
mhm,
can just pick that up, put it into this high-tech environment, take already the manufacturing skills that high-tech has, the speed, the repetitive nature of it, put those together, I think it really is going to aim, because I think that's where high tech has to go. It has to get even better at collaborative engineering and then apply its manufacturing skills that it already has to
mhm.
the game. So interesting. Digital
Yeah.
continuity as well.
That's one thing I don't think we realize is that when most of the time when we buy something that is a hardware and software together, that they aren't usually necessarily made all in-house. And so it is a huge thing that Joseph is talking about here for this to be the hardware used, the software used, and the AI added into it to all actually
Yep.
be made and developed by the same company.
Yep.
Which I guess gives some really big challenges to just how the product. It complicates probably
Yeah.
exponentially your product lifecycle.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, the hardware is getting more complex, more and more complex, and the manufacturing gonna face different challenges, and that gonna be really, really good. You know about Elon, right? With Neuralink, for example.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
look at Google, for example, the direction could be the same one, but without invasive devices at this point, with the earbuds. So yeah, I'm learning more about it, and sounds interesting. I guess different things
Good.
to understand. Because yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But in other news, guys, I have well, you know how passionate I'm about nearshore and reshoring manufacturing.
We've
So
noticed.
in Mexico, we
So
have
go on. What's going on?
yeah, we have a new investment, a new direction from Japan. So now Japan is looking at Mexico for nearshore for the American market, right? So that is another step to go forward with reshoring. So Forbes Mexico just published this article with 20 prospects of companies in Japan to invest in Mexico and develop different kind of things. We're talking about manufacturing into different industries. It's high tech, is automotive, is consumer goods. So it's different things. But that continue with my speech from the other week, talking about this. How is Mexico emerging or trying to become the big manufacturer
Mm.
by his, strategic location, know-how, labor, etc., etc. So we have
So where
different.
do you know where these 20 companies have got to in terms of investing in Mexico? Is it early days? Are they pretty
It's,
advanced?
it's early days to do that,
Okay,
but I
great.
think second semester or could be first semester of
Yeah,
next year,
got
we
it.
can have really good news about it. Yeah,
So it's automotive, it's high tech, it's CPG as well. You mentioned.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay.
consumer goods.
Well, do you know what type? Is it like consumer electronics, or is it packaged goods?
Yeah, well, it's packaged goods. Right now in Mexico,
Okay,
for example, and
interesting.
Latin America, we
Yep.
are having big growth with consumer goods. So for example,
Yep.
with beef, with these kind of things coming from Japan, But now these consumers,
I knew
you
you'd
know
go
how
there.
long the
I
food.
knew you. Yeah. Barbecue Joseph is off and running. I knew I'd open that can of worms. Do you know where it is in Mexico? Are there particular locations in Mexico where they're focused?
Well, particular locations, yeah, we have Monterrey, pretty
Okay.
close to the
Yeah.
border with
Pretty
Texas.
consistent. Yep.
Yeah. Also, a lot of know-how in terms of digital manufacturing,
Yep.
and also with manufacturing. Also, we have Ciudad Juarez in Chihuahua, pretty close
Okay.
to El Paso in Texas.
So again, we're going nearer the US kind of side of things. Makes sense. Transportation,
That's
etc.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good. Good.
But
Great.
also other strategic cities, just to close this, we have San Luis Potosí and Guadalajara. Why? Because it's exactly in the center of the country,
Yep.
and those cities
And
are
you
very
live
close.
there.
Sorry.
And you live there.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
Joseph is part of the tourism board, really.
Yeah. Well, the reason of those cities, is very close to the ports. The two more important from Mexico, we have Veracruz and Atlantic Ocean, and also we have in Manzanillo Port, which is the Pacific Ocean, right? So yeah, a lot of advantages by the location, I guess.
Great. Good. All righty.
I just today we're talking a little bit about manufacturing everywhere, and today was a new piece of news that they were calling basically another kind of war front between U.S. and China, but for the RISC-V, the RISC-V chip, which is a chip that I guess U.S. is now considering restricting American companies from working on this, which is a freely available chip technology that's used in China for security reasons and for the fact that it's basically kind of a war front, so to speak, of where semiconductors and chips are going to be all manufactured. So it's really interesting just to see how the politics in high tech, the manufacturing in high tech, and the advancements in high tech all keep clashing every day. As we have news coming in of, where people think technology is just look at all this fancy stuff that's happening with AI and with everything, but it's really all of that is based off of really solid manufacturing processes and where those are coming from. And so I think talking about whether those go to Mexico, to other places, is going to become bigger and bigger news as time goes forward.
Yeah, no, and wait, Brian, for the new regulations with those new chips, that Andrew said with NVIDIA and AI. So let's see how it goes in the coming months, probably, or in 2024, right?
Exactly.
Well, Joseph, thanks for joining us. And everybody, we will see you back in about 1 minute where we dive into people and culture.
See ya.
Good weekend.
And welcome back to the last 7 days, where we are going to dive into the people and culture side of things. With some of you may remember Hallie entered with a bang is the wrong word, but I don't know.
A shove.
From Andrew. A shove,
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I can still see you've got some resentment
Bruising
there, but this is Craig, everybody.
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good, Brian. Good, Andrew. Good to see you too. Andrew, I woke up and it wasn't even 40 degrees yet this morning, so I knew how excited you would be about the cold weather.
Gotta move. You gotta move, man. You gotta get out of there.
No.
It's just getting worse.
No, it's the
Getting
best.
worse. Hopefully this week you won't expose my extreme capitalism again. So
I wasn't this week. No.
Okay, good.
We do have a couple
Trying to be a little more moderate this week.
That's right. We do have a couple updates on the UAW though.
Oh God.
I know, and we'll keep this short just for you, Andrew. But it does sound like potentially progress has been made. We're kind of waiting with bated breath. In fact, it should be here in the next 10-15 minutes that the union president, Sean Fain, is going to address the union, and we're going to find out if he's going to basically order more walkouts across a couple more plants.
Have they not got over they're going to do a full working week yet? They've not got their heads back in that?
I'm not 100% sure yet. Yeah,
okay,
there's still negotiations going on. However, we did see Sean Fain, the president, union president, yesterday tweeted. Is it tweeted still? Is it what's X? But
he X'd.
Posted, not tweeted. I guess it's not tweeted anymore.
Posted
a photo with 3 men in suits with logos over the faces of each one, and said basically tune in to see who gets the rose. So it sounds like there might be one of them where operations are going to be able to resume next week. We'll find out. It's going to be interesting, very much so.
Right.
And there's no doubt that this has already impacted and will continue to impact the industry for a long time. And we've already seen thousands of workers laid off at smaller suppliers. There's no telling what kind of impact this is going to have on the future competitive landscape as we're rolling into manufacturing and researching and developing EV vehicles, right? Electric vehicles.
Well, exactly. I mean, this thing has got to be moved into being an annoying mosquito as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because this strike is the least of the problems for Ford and GM. I mean, the numbers they're having to commit to and spend are huge. As I think Ford are looking to spend around about $7 billion over the next few years to build a brand new battery plant, an EV manufacturing facility in Kentucky, Tennessee. GM is putting in $35 billion to 2020 to 25. And let's be honest, it's for their survival, because if they don't shift from ICE and go EV, then all of this conversation about paying more money and working half a week is going to, he says, throwing in a bit of sarcasm there, is going to be just insignificant to pay it to how they're going to have to compete in the EV world going forward. Amazing. Anyway.
Yeah, they're definitely fighting on two different fronts here, right? Both from a competitive perspective, but also the internal civil war that's happening.
Yeah. You got it. Okay.
Next up, just this week, we have had National Taco Day, National Boyfriend Day, National Vodka Day, even National Name Your Car Day.
I missed National Vodka Day?
Yeah, you miss you and me both. I think we need to put that on the calendar for next year. Make sure we have a happy hour.
Make that an official company event. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. As you were saying.
No, it's great. Today is actually National Manufacturing Day.
Now you're talking. That's a serious one. That's a serious one. That should be a national day.
That's right. It's actually been proclaimed by the president since 2014. So we've seen that every year officially.
Wait, the National Manufacturing Day is a real national day, not the internet says it's a national day.
Yeah. Not one that my mom calls me up and says it's National Sons Day, which I think was last week or something like that. It's great.
Who was president in 2014, guys?
Barack Obama.
There you go. Brought in National Manufacturing Day. Huh?
Yep. Set it up, and everyone has followed suit since, which is absolutely fantastic.
Good. That means rather than having a day off, we work twice as hard, I guess.
I think that's definitely what it means, or it's at least a little bit of a longer day. So,
you guys, you do know today's Friday, right?
It is. Yes.
Okay, just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, and they always pick the first Friday in October, so they know that, it's fall season, things are cooling down. People are wanting to head to the mountains if you're in Colorado or something like that. So,
right.
But I think there's a big conversation around that. I mean, obviously, Manufacturing Day is, I've even heard here in the Denver, Colorado area of a couple schools that are putting some real focus around manufacturing and engineering. And there's a lot of conversation around, okay, what are jobs going to look like in the next decade or so? With every industrial revolution, right, we're stepping back and going, oh no, or AI is going to remove all of our jobs. And I think
robotics, etc. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
Cobots.
I think we're going to be able to take a step back and say no. And we're even seeing there's a joint study by the Manufacturing Institute and Deloitte that basically said that's the opposite's going to happen. We're going to have more jobs, but the skills gap in the manufacturing industry could result in 2.1 to 2.5 million unfilled jobs by 2030. And so I think what needs to happen is companies need to step back and really lean into identifying what their current talent looks like, and then I got
to get on my soapbox right now.
For it.
So from 1985, when we started offshoring manufacturing, to 2005, we lost 1/3 of our workforce in manufacturing overseas. That's where it went, because we were cheaper. It was better to do it that way. Long supply chains, and nobody cares, because nobody expected Amazon to come along and suddenly expect things in 24, 6 hours, 2 days, whatever. So we lost all of that workforce. Now, exacerbating it further, we've got manufacturing coming onshore, not because it's cheaper necessarily, but because we want our products quicker. We want our products more personalized. So we've got this growth in manufacturing, depletion in workforce. The gap is huge. How do we fix it? AI, robotics, and everybody's going, oh, they're going to take our jobs. Yes, but no. They are going to replace jobs, no doubt about it. But maintenance on robots, on cobots, programming on AI, it's like industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. Jobs get changed and get replaced. But overall, there's more employment. That's happened every single industrial revolution. It's going to happen in Industry 4 or 5. I think 5 is probably AI. All right, I'm getting off my soapbox, guys. Now
it's great. It's great. I think there's no doubt, though, that change is coming, and so we've just got to be able to say, let's adapt, let's roll with it.
Yeah, let's work 32 hours a week. Yeah,
that's right. That. Yeah. Okay, 32 hours. It's perfect.
Andrew keeps trying to make sure he tries to find people to make mad at him every show.
That's right. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Work-life balance. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Last article is culture is apparently key to Boeing's safety management team. Now, I know hearing Boeing and safety in the same sentence can be a little triggering for some with
737
with the 737 MAX crisis over the last couple of years. But it sounds like Boeing has broadly revamped their safety management SMS, they call it, safety management system, which is technically according to the article, a formal framework intended to embed a safety focus throughout the company and help ensure safety shortcomings are addressed.
Internal as well as product, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Well,
that's great.
Yeah,
because it's as much for the workers and their safety with this equipment flying around the place. Just robots is an example.
Yes, I think that's part of it. I also think that in creating a culture, we were talking a little bit about this last week, and I don't want to open last week's can of worms, but go watch the live show last week if you missed it. But we talked a lot about transparency in the workplace, and I think everyone within a workplace environment should have the opportunity to feel safe enough to go to senior management and say, hey, there's a red flag right here. There could be a critical system failure. And so employees need to feel comfortable in reporting those issues. And so one of the things that basically leadership at Boeing has said is an essential element of an SMS, safety management system, is a confidential reporting system where employees can file reports without feeling any fear or reprisal or anyone going against them. So we know, or at least we've heard, that head of commercial airplanes at Boeing reads every report that comes up through the SMS. I think that
it's really tricky in an organization like Boeing to have this open door, transparency, openness policy, because at the end of the day, they're building a product that you can't make a mistake with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like healthcare to me.
Yep.
You know, if you make a mistake, someone dies. If you make a mistake, someone dies.
Yeah,
In
well, I agree
Boeing
with
as well. So it's tricky because everybody's having to hit that level of perfection.
Yeah.
If they make a mistake, they know the spotlight's going to be on them. But then on the other hand, we're saying, hey, come and tell us if you see there's a problem and a mistake being made. It's really tricky to have that culture where you're balancing that openness and people will make mistakes, but then we can't afford for them to make mistakes. Tricky.
Yeah. So
It's-
I'm glad to see some positive headlines that have both Boeing and safety within them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, and those of us who joined us from the beginning know that we've had a few guests on the show, a few special reporters, and apparently some of them are waiting backstage just wanting to chime in on what everybody else has said. So we're going to do something we've never done before here. We're just going to bring everybody on at once and just see what happens, unscripted, unplanned, and just see what folks want to say. So did I miss somebody? No, that's it.
No,
That's everybody. Yeah.
we're all here.
Yeah. So who has comments of what they've heard today? Nobody go all at once here. Oh, Dan's about to start.
Everybody's thinking, yeah.
No, I just unmuted myself. It just staggers me across all the sectors how complicated the whole supply chain is, and actually how fragile it is if you scratch beneath the surface. When we talk about offshoring, onshoring, I wonder whether there is the infrastructure in place to actually support all this change. If you take a look at the UK, for example, this is one very small example. There's all the debate about moving to electrification of vehicles, etc., and they've now pushed back the time scales for diesel cars not being able to be sold in the UK, etc. But at the end of the day, there's no infrastructure for EV charging. If you live in a block of flats, etc., where are you going to charge your vehicle? The cost associated with that.
You're way ahead of what we got in North America. Way ahead. It's frightening. So yeah, and you're sitting here. Yeah, careful. And then, but then equally, you're saying you're way behind. It's astonishing to see how far globally we're behind, because we think we're behind, and you do as well. Yeah.
Well, there's probably a broader story on general infrastructure projects in the UK at the moment, anyway. But it's I think fragile is the word which comes to mind out of all this. It's not a house built on sand, but it's fragile.
Yep.
Yeah.
One point I'd like to make is there's three things that I think go around the supply chain, Bruce. It's the retirement of the boomers always is a big issue with aerospace. They take the information sometimes and there's no knowledge share there. And then the other issue is, it's the chicken or the egg. It's, do we have the technology, the software that can help us with this, and balanced with, do we have enough people, right? So it's the people and software that go hand in hand. It's like, that balance.
Do we have enough users, or do we have enough implementers, or both?
Do we have enough users, and will they use it properly?
Yep.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah, get it. That's the biggest issue. So
I mean, adoption.
Always adoption. I always say you can spend millions on your technology and on your processes, but when it gets to the common man, he goes, "Oh, we use that." What was the point? Yeah.
Well, then you touch on the whole world of engagement and communication, etc., and how that will often undermine the best projects in the world.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got to get that organizational change piece, and it starts. Funny enough, I was on a chat this morning on LinkedIn around ERP of all things, and it was very much talking about EQ versus IQ. So, you may have the brightest person, but if you're not emotionally intelligent about he, she, and where they're at and the job that they do, and understand why they do it, you can't just walk in and say, well, this is what you're going to do tomorrow, because they're just going to say, well, great, nice theory, but ain't doing it. So I think it's all about understanding people of what they do today, why they do it today, and then helping them transition to what they need to do tomorrow with new systems, new ways of working, etc. Big area, big area, often ignored.
To go just a little bit farther from what you're talking about of understanding people, as everybody's talking, I'm thinking that what we have is industries, life cycles, all of these things are created because of a need that humans have. and then the need that they had that created these products, well, these actually create more things. And then someone says, hey, let's make life simpler with a new one. And this whole process is all about understanding people, whether it's from understanding what people need to survive, what people need to be happy, what people are creating new things that we think people might want to maybe think that they didn't think they need these to be happy. You know, I don't know, these devices, stuff like that. And then all of this creates whole new product life cycles. And it's literally this whole life cycle of life cycles that is incredibly complicated. And as Bruce has said, really fragile. So we are an interesting species that have just make industries to focus around ourselves.
I am going to leave you with one last thought. I am about to bounce to a meeting, which is, we were talking about space earlier today. So we're starting up in Denver, Colorado. Essentially what's going to result in being an incubator. What does that mean? It means that we're focusing on the aerospace and defense sector. So defense and space is a primary target, space especially, and trying to encourage startups to come in-house, get space, get advisory, get back office, front office, funding, support to get their business up and running, because it is such an amazing sector of what's going on. I mean, I talked about in-space assembly and manufacturing and the new world of that. So I'm about to go and bounce and talk to Dassault about setting the incubator up in Denver, Colorado. Really fascinating. So thought I'd leave
I'm sure
you
we'll have some new news items about that coming soon too.
That's exciting.
You bet. I'm good.
Yeah.
Andrew,
I'm going to bounce.
does that mean you're moving to Denver? Is that what
Oh,
I'm hearing?
shut up. Not at 40 degrees, it ain't.
Well, everybody,
See you
guys. Have a great weekend.
Today. Hopefully you learned something. We're slightly entertained, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good to see you all.